for me personally, because I can only speak for me, I didn't really take much notice. And suddenly when I lost my dad, I was sitting outside in my backyard and nature was right there. And without me even realizing it, it was helping me. I was like, wow, it's such a powerful force.
Welcome to Wild Development Studio. Join us as we venture into the breathtaking realm of wildlife arts and untamed adventures. With captivating stories from the field and ideas to dive into the visual arts, we'll ignite your passion for conservation. Get ready to develop something wild.
Welcome to Wild Developments, where we explore the wild side of life and the depths of human emotion through stories of wildlife, art, and adventures. I'm your guide, Lauren, and today we are honored to introduce a special guest. He turned his personal journey of loss into a powerful mission to help others navigate through grief. Richard John Allen is an author known by his pen name, John Allen. This is in honor of his father, who passed away from cancer in 2020. Originally from Liverpool and now residing in North Carolina, he left his corporate job after the loss of his father to write about coping with grief. In his first book, Keep Calm and Cope with Grief, he shares personal experience and practical advice. His second book, Life After This, explores how past civilizations and religion deal with grief. In Nature's Reach, Rich discusses how nature can help us heal. Rich says, I believe that each and every one of us goes through life in a unique and special way. Whether we realize it or not, we are shown messages and signs and given skills and gifts, all of which help us through the good times and the bad. Rich, thank you so much for being here today.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here, Lauren. Thank you.
I'm excited to talk all about your book, Nature's Reach. And so you've wrote several books. Have you always wanted to be an author, or what inspired you to write?
No, I had no idea that I would be on this path. So long story short is kind of sad. Well, it is sad, devastating, to be honest. I lost my dad to cancer in 2020. He sent me a text message in February 2020. I live in North Carolina and my family's from Liverpool, England. He sent me a text message and he said, hey, son, I've had a physical. I have cancer. There's nothing they can do. It's throughout my body and I'm going to die. And it was devastating. And he passed away in November that year, 2020, which was during COVID, made it even more difficult to get over there. Anyway, it was my wife, Alison. Anybody who's lost a loved one and gone through grief, it's just so traumatic. It really is. Changes your life forever. And you go through so many things physically and emotionally. And going through seeing my mum and my sister being devastated by this and, organizing the funeral, the obituary, all of those things. Anyway, you don't realize, but you're collecting things, whether it be memories or physical things. We went to church, of course, you pick up the pamphlet. You get the condolences cards from family members. You're collecting things. And anyway, when we got back to America, it was my wife, Alison. She said to me, Rich, you should write a book about this whole experience of loss and grief. I was like, no, my English is terrible. I can't spell. So thank God, we have editor and spell check. Anyway, so I started to doodle. I'm always writing now, making notes. And before I knew it, I had 6 or 7 chapters written. And I wrote my first book, Keep Calm and Cope with Grief. And it was all about going through the process of losing a loved one. And suddenly I was on that path. At the time, I was working for an insurance company. I've always worked for big corporations, but I left that in 2020 and I started writing books. And I'm currently working on book number 5. But book number 3, the third book I wrote, Nature's Reach, was, again, my books are all about my journey, but I share my research. But at the time of writing Nature's Reach, it was how nature was helping me cope with my loss and grief of my dad. And losing my dad in 2020 and then writing Nature's Reach, sadly, during that whole time too, I lost my dog. Alison lost her father and mother. So I lost both my mother and father-in-laws. So there was just a lot of grief in our house, and I found myself surrounded by nature, and it was helping me tremendously. And my book, it's out on Amazon, and I, I'm flattered by the reviews, and people write to me every day on Facebook about how much my books are helping them. And certainly with Nature's Reach, we just don't think about it, right, Lauren? I mean, nature's all around us. And most of us, well, I shouldn't say that. For me personally, because I can only speak for me, I didn't really take much notice. And suddenly when I lost my dad, I was sitting outside in my backyard and nature was right there. And without me even realizing it, it was helping me. I was like, wow, what? It's such a powerful force in so many ways. And there's so much in nature. It to me, it just seems endless, right? There's just so much out there on so many levels. It's incredible, absolutely incredible. So now I had no idea I was going to be it doesn't even sound right to say I'm an author because like I said, it's flattering to be, ooh, Richard's an author. No, I don't know. I mean, I'm on my fifth book. So yes, I guess I could say I'm an author. Yeah.
And, I think as a society in a whole, we don't like talking about death and grief. And it's just like, we got to be busy and we always got to do fun things right now. We don't look at the uncomfortable side of life. And your books are
Right.
so important. I was myself, when I was listening to your book, I was packing up and throwing away things to donate from a previous job that I had before 2020. And I, obviously I've been putting this off for years. And I will say, even just listening to Nature's Reach and picturing the different scenarios that you describe in the book helped me to cope with my own grief as I'm going through and kind of saying goodbye to that part of my life. So it was definitely very helpful
Wow.
for me. So it is so important, and your journey is definitely going to help other people. Do
Yeah.
you, being born in England and then living in
Mhm.
the US, do you see that there are different ways that each country deals with grief?
Yes. I mean, my sister and I, obviously, we lost our dad, and we're coping with grief in different ways. I've learned. So when I lost my dad, it was my first time of experiencing grief. I've been lucky, I guess, because I lost my grandparents when I was young, so it really didn't affect me that much. I'm 57 now, but losing my dad just 3 years ago, it was like, boom, here's this new emotion, Rich. Here's grief. This is what it feels like when your heart is destroyed and all you're left with is memories. I used to receive text messages from my dad when Liverpool, the soccer team, would play soccer every week, and my dad would send me text messages, and I'd reply. I don't get that anymore. So now that that's gone, it's just devastating. But my sister and I noticed, yeah, she's definitely coping with it differently to me, and there's no right or wrong way to cope with grief. You just have to find a way that fits for you. It's so individual. It's so unique to you. Nobody has walked in your shoes, right? You've lived your life with that loved one, and nobody else can. I know people say to you, "Oh, I know how you feel. I know what you must be going through because I lost my dad." Well, I appreciate that, but this was my dad. You lost your dad. I don't know really how you truly feel because it is so unique. So you're absolutely right. I've noticed it is different between England and America, even just from all the comments I've received and notes from people from England and the US, it is different. And I can actually see that in the book sales. I'm looking at my book sales and my different books. I can see, why is this one selling more in the UK than in the US, and vice versa. It's
Yeah,
interesting. Yeah.
that is interesting. And I love that part in the book where you say that people will say all the time, "Oh, I know how you're feeling." And when
Mhm.
my son was born a few days later, my husband was deployed, and people are like, "Oh, I know how you must be feeling." Like, really? You've had an infant
Yeah.
and your husband has been deployed? I don't
Yeah.
know that you know how I'm feeling. So I thought that
Yes.
was very important because we are all on our own journey and
Hmm.
feel things, and things mean differently. And you're right with you are your own expert in dealing with your grief.
Yeah.
Um, and in your
Yeah.
book, right off the bat, you boldly share your view on spirituality and thanking the Lord for all the creatures and even down to the breath that we take. I've had
Yeah.
people come on my podcast before, and before we'd record, they'd ask for permission to share their gratitude for God. And sadly, that's what the world has become, right?
Yeah.
Was that a
Yeah.
difficult decision for you to share your faith?
It wasn't, no, because um, if you look at my bio on the Amazon page, or if you go to my website, you'll see that I'm a Catholic. I was brought up with a lot of religion in my life. You know, I went to church every Sunday with my mum and my sister. I was an altar boy for several years. I went to an all-boys school, a Catholic school in England. And at the age of 16, I went to a seminary school, believing that I was going to become a priest. So religion was huge. I mean, at my high school, we had some of our teachers were priests. So it was all around me. Religion was all around me. Obviously, I'm not a priest. And when I went to seminary school, I realized that's not my path. But it's always been in my life, and it's very important to me. And I wanted to share that in my books. I didn't want to hide it. But I do keep an open mind, you know, as I'm trying to write in my books, you know, as we just said, everybody's individual. You believe what you want to believe. I'm not trying to say this is the way. This is just my way, and I'm sharing it with you, you know. Um, but having said that, the feedback I get, it's kind of sad and it's good. I get a lot of love from the feedback. But once in a while, somebody will write to me about something I've said in my books, and they'll say, no, you're wrong. You know, that isn't the way it's supposed to be, and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, I kind of, well, I don't like that. Nobody's wrong. You know, you believe what you want to believe, and I respect it. And I love for that, because it's good to have that conversation. But please don't point fingers and judge people that way. You know, it's just not nice to me anyway. You
Mhm.
know, we should all be happy with one another's differences, you know?
Absolutely.
Can I share this one thing? I'm sorry, Lauren. It's kind of cute, because talking about religion and saying, you know, going to church, which I think is a wonderful thing. And I used to go several times a week. And I'll be honest, I hardly ever go to church now. I might go every Christmas. But I was watching a TV show on Netflix, and it's called The Last Kingdom. And there's a character in it called Uhtred Ragnarsson. Anyway, it's roughly based on a true story. It's set in England. And there's a quote from what he says. And I love this quote. He says, God created everything that surrounds me, the fields, the rivers, the forests. The land is my church, and I pray each day, Lord, in silence. And that's how I feel now with nature. You know, the fields, the rivers, the forests, all around me here, that is my church. God created everything around me, and that's where I pray. I don't need to go to a man-made building called a church and pray there. I can, and that's great for people, but you can pray anywhere. I can sit outside in my backyard surrounded by nature, and to me, that's my church, you know?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to look outside and see all the beauty and the organization and how many different varieties of species there are, and think there isn't a creator. Like, there has to be
Yeah.
some sort of creator, and I do believe in God. So
Yes.
I
Yeah.
think it's beautiful. Now, you did have a section in your book where you have a list of questions that people should think about before getting an animal to help
Mm.
with grief. And I thought that was brilliant, because a lot of people, I think, didn't think a few months ahead when they were getting pets or chickens during COVID. And a
Yeah.
lot of people that are like, oh man, I wish I didn't get chickens, because now that COVID's over, I got these chickens and I'm back at work.
Yeah.
And animals have feelings too. And that needs to be considered. So that was great that you
Yeah.
thought of that angle too.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like I say, I lost my dog 2 years ago, and he was 15 years old. He was my best friend. You know, I met my wife 9 years ago. So she met my dog. His name was Amadeus, and she fell in love with him straight away. He was a Chihuahua mix, such a cute, adoring dog. And he took to Alison straight away. So they were best friends too. And we took him to the beach with us. He went everywhere with us, you know, and they are great companions for us, but we just have to be careful that when we lose somebody that we love and we want a pet for comfort, that we think of the long term. Can we care for that dog? Because it does become part of your family. So it's so important. Yeah.
What is, I'm sure there are different ways. Do you have a couple methods and tools that you keep in your back pocket to help you deal with grief?
So I'm very lucky. Where I live on a lake. My wife and I got so lucky. When we met each other, we wanted to live together, of course, and we're married now. And we found this small piece of land on a lake where we live. And when I go out into the backyard, it's right there. I'm looking at this lake, and that's I say it's in my back pocket. It's actually in my face. Right? I mean, it's right there. I look out the window, boom, it's there. And I'm so lucky for that. So grateful. My wife and I were like, we'll never leave this place. It's our sanctuary. So I open the back door, go sit outside on my deck and just sit there. And it's funny, Lauren, only a few days ago, my wife and I were sitting there and she said, why don't we get a big television and put it on the back of the house so we can watch TV shows like Friends and things like this? And I was like, yeah, yeah. And then we said, but why? If we're looking at the back of the house and we're watching the TV, then behind us is the lake. And that's nature, right? We want to turn around. We want to face the lake. So we said, yeah. So we're not going to put a television outside on the back of the house now, which is great because when we look at the lake, there's so many characters and we've made so many friends. We have deer that walk through the backyard. We have possums, raccoons, bald eagles that fly over. I saw 5 the other day. 5 bald eagles all at the same time. We have all these ducks, geese, I mean, birds everywhere, squirrels everywhere, flying squirrels. We see them in our trees, just nature all around us. So I sit outside. That's my number one for relaxing, is to sit outside on the back deck. And like I said, these animals, some of them have become close friends. I have a deer that I've named Samantha, or Sammy, and she'll come up to me and I feed her by hand.
Wow.
So I put corn in my hand and I put it out, and I think, well, actually, in my book, Nature's Reach, there's a photograph, let's see, page 42, of me feeding Samantha by hand, and I can stroke her, it's just crazy. And we have ducks. There's this huge duck. I think he's a mallard type of duck, but he's twice the size of all the other mallards. So I'm not quite sure what type of duck. I know he's a mallard because he has the same colors. Anyway, I've called him Goliath because he's so big. And when I see him down on the lake, we live up high on a kind of a hill. So we look down at the lake and I'll make this noise like this. And he looks up and he sees me and he runs up the hill. And I can feed him by hand and I can stroke him. So he's like a friend. So I love my dog and I think about him every day, but I'm not ready to get another dog. And I don't need to because I have ducks and deer. These are my pets now, So I love to sit outside and be surrounded by nature like this. I'm truly lucky for what we have. Yeah.
That sounds beautiful.
Yeah.
In the book, you do talk about some natural cures for diseases. Can you give any examples of how nature heals us that you came across in your research?
Yeah, so I made some notes. I'm always making notes. So we know that, well, nature is all around us. It doesn't matter if you're in the city, right? You can look out your window and see the sky. To me, that's nature too. The weather has an effect on me too. There's something called SAD, SAD, right? The seasonal affective disorder. I had no idea what SAD was, this seasonal affective disorder. And basically obviously it's a seasonal effect on you. And during fall or winter, we kind of feel tired, lazy, lethargic. We want to lie on the sofa with a blanket, and that's all nice. But it kind of brings us down just a little bit, generally speaking, right? And during spring and summer, we feel much happier. We want to be outside. We want to exercise. We're doing yard work. We've got more energy and we're vitalized. And to me, it's true, that affects me in those ways. But there's a lot of things that you can do during winter to try and help you break that bond of feeling lethargic and lazy. Just a simple exercise. You don't have to go to the gym or work out at the house, but just go for a walk. Again, this lake here, you can walk around the lake. It's a 2-mile walk. So I'm very lucky. My wife and I, we do it quite often. But you can just go to a local park, walk to your local grocery store if it's near enough and it's safe to do so, right? But there's lots of things you can do there. Even the way you eat, the food you eat, nutritional food. My wife this morning told me I was having pancakes for breakfast. And she's like, Richard, really? Carbs with syrup? All that sugar? And I'm like, leave me alone. I like it. but she put next to me, a bowl of blueberries because the antioxidants and, how much better, and strawberries, how much healthier they are for you. So you can also look at your diet. But also listening to classical music. I think it was on the Dr. Oz show. He mentioned that listening to 20 minutes a day of classical music has a calming effect and reduces the cortisol in your body. Now, cortisol is a good hormone that's produced by your kidneys. It helps reduce your blood pressure, your heart rate. It also helps your sleep cycles. It does so many things. But if you had too much cortisol in your body, it's not good for you. So you need to control that. And you can do that by your diet, by your exercise. So it's important to do those things too. So there is a lot of things that you can physically do to help you stay calm and relaxed. But again, my number one thing, I'm going to eat my pancakes, but I am going to sit outside this afternoon and enjoy the peaceful view that I have of nature, because that really does reduce my, my heart rate and my blood pressure. I feel super calm and relaxed.
Other than your back view, which sounds amazing, do you have another place or a favorite thing that you like to do in nature when you're grieving or even when you're not grieving?
So I've mentioned, if you're near water or the mountains or the beach, has a calming effect on you, right? But I found churches or it sounds kind of morbid, but graveyards. And in England, there's old churches everywhere, graveyards everywhere. And I've been brought up, for 30 some years. That was always a part of my life. Now, where I am now, not so much. It's a little different. But I found that when I find a church, it has a calming effect on me. And again, you don't have to go to church when the mass is being, serviced or whatever. You can go when it's quiet and it's empty. Just sit in one of the pews. I just find that sitting in a church, walking around the church is very calming to me. I like to listen to church music, if you can call it that. Like Gregorian chant music, like basically church choir. So they're singing in Latin. It's just very relaxing to me. So I like to do that too. Being in any quiet place, to be honest with you, whether it be a library, that's another calming place for me. I like to browse through the books. Obviously, now that I'm an author, I've taken more of an interest in books. So sitting in my local library and going through the books, reading, making notes, doing some research, again, is a calming thing for me. But to people out there who maybe have lost a loved one or just are looking for something that's calming, I mean, you could go to, let's say you used to go with your mum or your dad or a relative and you used to walk the dog through a certain park and sit on a certain bench somewhere. You can still do that now. Even though that you've lost your loved one, do that act. Go to that park, go to that certain place. Maybe you went fishing with your dad, but you've lost your dad. Go fishing. It might be painful, but you'll feel that connection with your loved one, with your dad who's crossed over. And I don't think we should shy away from those physical activities now that we've lost those loved ones. I think we should still do those. I still send my dad a birthday card. Even though I lost him 3 years ago, I still put it in the mailbox. I send it over to my mum. She opens the envelope and she puts it on the mantelpiece in the living room. It's still my dad's birthday. Even though he's passed over, I still respect, love him, think about him daily, and it's still his birthday. So I still send him a birthday card. Even the wedding anniversary, it's to mum and dad. I still do those things. But there's so many things out there that we can do involving nature, and it doesn't cost us anything. It can be free. You don't have to climb a big mountain and go on this expedition, and it costs a lot of money to be surrounded by nature. It's actually around us, and it's free. That's the best part.
My grandfather passed away many, many years ago, and he lived in Florida, and he would feed the birds all the time. He had tons of bird feeders in the back. So I do that at my house, and that's kind of a way for me to connect with my grandfather. And we'll still go visit that house. My uncle owns it. He doesn't live there full time, but we'll visit the outside of the house and just kind of reminisce about those memories. And that's hard for my mom to do. But I wish she kind of would. And the last time I brought my son there, his favorite animal on the planet are turtles. And when we went to visit, we saw a gopher tortoise. And it was kind of like they sent him a turtle to look at when they went to go visit. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. That's so cool, isn't it? How God or our creator or how life turns out that way. And you can think, I keep an open mind, Lauren. It's like I still get signs from my dad. I talk about this in all my books. And I look at things logically. I always associate, my dad loved Star Trek, and we used to joke about my dad and say he was Spock. He was the character Spock in Star Trek because my dad was so logical. And I guess that rubbed off on me. So when anything like this happens, when there's a sign from my dad, I always think about it logically and try and be a detective and think, okay, is it a coincidence? Could it be this? Could it be that? But once I eliminate all of the factors, then I'm left with like the unquestionable, oh, this has to be my dad. There's just no way this has to have been my dad. And I have so many instances where that's happened, where I have no doubt my dad has sent me this particular message. I could talk to you for hours about those. I mean, it just blows my mind. So I do believe in the afterlife. I do believe in life after this. I believe this life we have is just temporary. I don't think I believe, and it's our own personal belief, that the next is eternal when we cross over, and that we will be reunited with our loved ones. However, living here now without my dad is painful, right? When we lose a loved one, it is painful because we love them so much. It's a testament to how much we loved those people. And that's why we hurt so much. But life goes on, the clock keeps ticking. So we just have to find something that works for us. And what's working for me is nature. I mean, I know you can see a therapist, a psychiatrist, you can have medication, you can join a grief group on Facebook, and they can all work, or it could be a mix of things that work for you. But for me, nature, don't dismiss nature. It's so, so powerful. I would advise anybody to just go out there, just sit on a bench in your backyard, even just look out the window quietly with a nice cup of tea or cup of coffee, It really is a wonderful thing. I've always believed, Lauren, that whatever illness, whatever disease, whatever problem physically or mentally that we have, there's a natural cure for it on earth. I'm sure there's a natural cure for cancer, diabetes, for depression, for grief. I think there's a natural cure for everything that's on this planet. We just have to find it, and I think for grief, nature is a cure.
Yeah, I think God's provided us with the resources and everything that we need, and we don't need to rely on companies that just want a little bit of a different type of green. I think nature's green is definitely more healing than anything.
Exactly. Yep.
Rich, what is your favorite memory outdoors?
Favorite memory outdoors. I'll tell you that this quick story real quick. So when my dad told me he had cancer in February 2020, and he sent me that text message, Alison and I jumped on the first flight over to England, which was just before COVID hit. We did see people wearing masks, and we thought that's strange. Anyway, we got to England, and it was the first week in March, and we saw my dad. It was so emotional. I was hugging him. We were crying. We were talking. And Alice and I stepped outside of their house to get some fresh air. And it was raining, but the sun was out. And we saw this double rainbow. And we were like, wow. And Alison said to me, maybe it's a sign. Maybe it's a sign that your dad's going to survive. He'll be cured of cancer. And I said, I hope so. So we left after our visit. We came back to America. Of course, my dad didn't survive. He passed away in November 2020. Well, 2 years ago, so this would have been, I guess, November 2023. Okay. So 1.5 years ago or something. It was my dad's birthday. So I'm here in the United States. And like I just mentioned before, I always send my dad a birthday card. So I wrote up the card. I signed it. Alison signed it. We put it in the envelope. And there was a really bad storm that came through. You know those storms that come and go in 20 minutes? It was a black sky, thunder, lightning, rain. You know, it was, the trees were going crazy. And then within 20 minutes, it was gone. And the sun had come out. So I said to Alison, I'm going to go down to the mailbox and put the birthday card in the mailbox. So I go outside, and sure enough, the sun was out, but it was still raining a little bit. And right at the side of our house was a rainbow. And it went from our shed to our house. It was maybe 50 feet long, brightest colors I've ever seen. And I was standing right underneath this miniature rainbow. Now, I've seen rainbows in the sky, but never one like just above my head. So I started crying. I went inside. I told Alison. She came outside. We took video. We took photographs. And there's a picture in my Nature's Reach book near the back, I think, of the rainbow. We couldn't believe it. And Alison said, is this a sign from your dad? He sent you a rainbow. And I said, maybe it is. Because, you know, we were there and we saw that double rainbow. And I'm sending him a card. I put the card in the mailbox. And all of a sudden, here's a rainbow. So that is just one of the things in nature. A sign from my dad? Maybe it was. You know, it's one of those, could it have been a coincidence? Yeah. But could it be a sign from my dad? Because I just literally put a birthday card in the mailbox and I turned around and there's a rainbow. I've never seen one so small, Lauren. I mean, normally they're high in the sky, but this was like, I could nearly reach up and touch it. It was bizarre.
Like just for you.
Yeah, yeah. It was crazy.
I 100% believe that it was a sign from your dad because my grandma gave my mom a double rainbow. So we
Oh my God.
my son was 6 days old. We dropped my husband off at the airport and he was going back to be deployed, going to Kuwait. And my mom was staying at my house with me to help me take care of the baby. And she got a call that her mom was dying. And I just all of a sudden got this feeling like my grandfather was happy that my grandma was with him again. And my mom came inside and she's like, Grandma passed away. I was like, I know. And at that same time, we get a call that the flight was delayed. So I was able to go pick up my husband and he was able to come home with me. And I told my mom, you need to go be with Dad. Go spend time with your husband. So she went home about 20 minutes away. That next morning, I was on the couch because I couldn't walk up the stairs. I had a C-section and the room was glowing so bright orange. And I look outside and it's this huge double rainbow. And my mom sends me a picture. She's like, look at this. My mom sent me the sign. I told her I always wanted a sign. She sent me this rainbow. Like, I know, I'm looking at it right now. Like, I've never seen, people 20 minutes away from each other seeing the same rainbow. And I was like, that absolutely is Grandma. So I believe that your dad did send you that.
Wow, that's incredible. Yeah, I mean, you have to look at these things with an open mind and think, yeah, it could be this, it could be that. But some of them, you just think, yeah, that's a sign right there. Incredible. Wow. Sorry.
I got chills. Okay.
Yeah.
We're almost at
I know.
So where can people find you?
Um, well, I use my dad's name as my author name for the love and respect. So my author name is John Allen. My full name is Richard John Allen. So I use John Allen as my author name. So if you go on Amazon and look me up, but you can find me at richardjohnallen.com. That's my website. It's just my name and then .com, richardjohnallen.com. Yeah.
And I will be sure to tag that in the show notes so people can, right after listening, they can go over to your website and grab one of your books or all your books, because it is such an important topic. And it was very healing for me when I was reading Nature's Reach. So I hope the same for other people too.
Thank you.
Thanks. And before we go, what is one tip that you have for someone that would like to connect with nature?
Spend 2 minutes and just look outside the window. You know, you don't have to go outside. You don't have to make a big effort, right? Just look outside the window and look for nature. It's right there. Whether you're looking at the clouds pass by in the sky, whether you see a bird in a tree. But if you can get outside, just make that effort and sit quietly. And I would also suggest, don't turn off your cell phone, but maybe put it on silent so you're not interrupted. Because I know we like to go outside, and one of the things we'll do is we'll whip out the cell phone. Don't. Just give nature a chance, and it'll help you, I promise.
Thank you so much. And until next time, get outside and see what develops.
Thanks for joining Wild Development Studio. We hope this exploration into the world of wildlife arts and adventure has sparked it outside and connect with something wild. If you have an adventure that's awe-inspiring, don't hesitate to share. Click the link in the description to submit your story to have it featured on our show or be a guest. Until next time, keep connecting to the wild and see what develops. The views, opinions, and statements expressed by individuals during Wild Development Studio productions do not necessarily reflect the views or opinions of Wild Development Studio or its affiliates. Participation in any activities, expeditions, or adventures discussed or promoted during our content may involve inherent risks. It is strongly advised that individuals conduct thorough research, seek professional guidance, and take all necessary precautions before engaging in any such activities. Wild Development Studio, its representatives, or employees shall not be held responsible for any injury, loss, damage, accident, or unforeseen incident that may occur as a result of participating in activities inspired by or discussed in our content. By choosing to engage with our content or act upon any information provided, individuals do so at their own risk and discretion.